So I think, Steve, you and I think we agree on the problem and the need for healthier, more stronger communities where people, have brighter futures. My point is about the original question around the living wage is even if you raise the minimum wage to some number, there are people who just can't get a job because the industries have left. Like if you're in West Virginia, and we say, okay, now mining companies like minimum wage is now $20 an hour. Number one, a lot of those mining companies, I don't know if they have a big bright future. And number two,
hopefully not.
like, yeah, then what are those unemployed people going to do? And I know that's part of the benefit of the job guarantee, but another one would be like, hey, you've got this floor of cash, and now's your opportunity to retool or maybe to move to an area where there are more jobs. And so that's my concern about the focus, not of this conversation, but sometimes we focus a lot about the minimum wage, which only applies to people who have jobs.
You're absolutely right. I couldn't agree with you more. So one of the things that we focus on in the MMT space, especially as we look at the Green New Deal, because again, I'm looking at scaling much bigger. Our environment is burning up right now. And we've seen it in the West Coast, I'm sure out in your way, Portland, Seattle, Canada, Arctic, So we talk about what we call a just transition, a transition job away from these dirty jobs, and to give people, we could nationalize payroll, just as an example, like we could have done during this pandemic. Those individuals that are being let go from these dirty jobs, we could very, very easily provide a transition wage through that period, through the job guarantee, but step it up. There's ways of bringing people into a more inclusive society. But your point is spot on. And this is the point. The job guarantee is not intended to be a professional level to professional level job. It literally is the floor for whatever area. And I really do like what Peter said about having that wage not just static. I think if you're in San Francisco, $15 an hour isn't going to buy you a cup of coffee. So I think you have to really consider where you're at. But on the flip side, though, I think it'd be hard pressed to look at those tents and say there's not work to be done. So for me, in my position, I would say, let's look at a federal job guarantee as the base. Let's look at a job transition, a transitional job at the mid-range as people migrate away from dirty jobs to revive the economy. And then let's look at expanding Social Security. And that is my stack right there to ensure that nobody is left behind, no ableist stuff. I mean, I want to see Social Security funded proper. I want to get rid of FICA taxes. There's not a single libertarian out there that wouldn't love getting rid of FICA taxes. We can pay a socially inclusive wage in Social Security as well. We haven't had cost of living increases forever, so it should be done.
That's one of the reasons I also wanted to have this conversation. Jen and I talk about all the time about how progressives and libertarians actually share a lot of common ground. And there's a lot of people who like to pretend that that is not the case, depending on what the issue is. Obviously, there are very strong philosophical differences in many ways, in many different aspects of economics. But something as simple as Medicare for all, I would think, makes total sense from a progressive standpoint, from a jobs guarantee standpoint, as well as from a libertarian, even a UBI standpoint, because it's the most cost-effective way to implement a federal program. At this point, it would seem almost nonsensical. As Jen likes to say, it's like debating a flat earther when it comes to universal health care. And if the ultimate goal is to be the most efficient while providing the most service, I would think that that's something you guys would agree on.
I think Medicare for all is not strong enough. That's my angle. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, I think definitely.
Yeah, I certainly would agree that the current healthcare system is delivering very unsatisfying outcomes for extraordinarily high costs. It needs to be reformed, and I hope that something like Medicare for All will get more traction. It's probably one of those areas where the markets are not working as you would want them to. And so that's where you have to kind of do what works. And so, yeah, we would for sure agree on that.
An interesting question that just popped in my head, and I'm curious what you guys think when it comes to education, because there's a lot of different aspects of education, whether it is going to a regular college and you're studying a variety of different, philosophies and whatnot. But I don't think trade schools get enough of a push. And I think this is one of those areas where the federal jobs guarantee and UBI can really intersect, because as I've said, we are really far behind in a lot of ways, especially in terms of, the global scale as far as where we are in terms of infrastructure. And there is a lot of trades that I think a lot of people would like to learn, but it takes time in order to get to that point where having the necessary skill to obtain such a job would be possible. So I think in that sense, having UBI and a jobs guarantee attached to our education system, I think could have a lot of value, especially when it comes to trade. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, you hit on a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, Peter. So I absolutely feel like we currently raise our kids, many of us, with this idea that you either go to college or that's it. And that is the ultimate marker of successful parenting and growing up. And the reality, as many of us know, is a lot of people don't finish their college education. And those that do end up working in jobs that do not require those 4 years spent attaining that degree. And I had the opportunity to live for a few years in Switzerland, where they take a very different approach. Where, yeah, you could go to university for, I think, about 10% of the students end up there, but it's not considered like the end all be all and the ultimate goal. And there's great pride in becoming a, master roofer or plumber or electrician or, healthcare worker or a teacher. And these are highly paid, high skill jobs, but they do require years of training and apprenticeship, and that does have a lot of government support, because the market doesn't really want to pay for unskilled people learning, so that's why the government subsidizes a lot of it. But I totally think that whether it's federal jobs guarantee or basic income, how do we prepare young people for great jobs is something that we don't do enough of. And I feel like there's an overemphasis on the 4-year college degree, and there are so many people graduating with tons of debt, with majors in like sports marketing, and there's not that many sports marketing jobs out there that are going to pay back that debt.
That's a great point, Steve.
Yeah. So I'm all about making students get paid. I see no reason why we can't make that a part of a job guarantee. I think that part of job training, trade training, all of this is baked in. If you want to get a chance, take a chance and read Pavlina Cherneva's book, The Case for a Job Guarantee. She really lays those things out, because this is so much more. We're literally trying to take people out of thinking about making profit for the man and thinking about social value. We think that people getting educated in whatever they want to get educated in is socially valuable. So I would be all for making that part of a job guarantee program. And again, remember, part of this here is the intentional, very, very, very intentional alteration of what we deem as work. How many hours? I mean, I'll tell you right now, I put in probably 100 hours a week running Real Progressives and Real Progress in Action, doing the New Untouchables, doing Macro and Cheese. And this is all up till 2-3 in the morning. Okay. And that work is uncompensated. I receive not a penny for it. I mean, we receive as a nonprofit, we receive income, but it's to help, build out what we're doing. Yeah. And so it would be great to receive, even if it was $15 an hour, boy, oh boy, I assure you, my family would be saying, okay, maybe it's not a hobby anymore. You know what I mean? And so maybe they would be a little bit more accepting of the time I spend away
Yeah.
from them. But yeah, I'm completely on board with this. I mean, this is investing in people, humanity, our communities. So absolutely.
This is a very important question, maybe the most important one of the night. We have a lot of organizations that spring up that are trying to get people elected into local, state, and federal office. Most of the time, they just focus on the party politic dynamic. I personally think that the best organization, as far as a national organization run, is the Sunrise Movement, because their primary focus is on the environment and it's on a solution. And the Green New Deal is obviously part of it, but their primary goal is to elect people into office that are going to fight for this primary issue, which is saving our environment. How do you guys feel about the prospect of potentially starting, let's say, a UBI caucus, an MMT caucus, where basically candidates run for office on the premise that they support this particular type of economic solution? And obviously, our main goal is to make sure that those that are fighting for that are not taking corporate special interest money, who obviously have no interest in these type of solutions. How do you guys feel about the prospect of having that type of a focus, where maybe it isn't necessarily important to focus necessarily on the party, but more so on the policy?
Tom?
Oh, thanks, Steve. You're very gracious. I actually left this out of my intro, but I also am a co-founder of thepeople.us, which is kind of like a Yelp for local candidates. And the idea is to help increase awareness of candidates running for local offices who may not have run before, and then make it easy to find them nationally based on their policy interests. So if you were super fired up about a federal jobs guarantee, you could then find all of the candidates running that support that, or it could be basic income or Green New Deal, whatever it might be. But generally, that is based on the argument or the hope that more competition in elected office will help bring more diverse and different points of view into our federal government. And I definitely feel like the current system, specifically of the two parties, is not set up to allow for new voices to emerge and have a seat at the table. And so, that's going to be a long-term effort, but it's probably something we're going to need to do. I feel like there's more than two parties in this country, and there's so many great ideas that there should be a more diverse and more robust debate. And it can't just be like, well, you're on this team or that team. I think there's a lot of ways to look at things. But Steve,
yeah, this goes to what I said in the very, very beginning. Like, I support any type of policy that's going to help us have people have a life of dignity and justice. Like, it's one thing if, as long as we all agree that the end result is to not have people living in the streets and to not have people unemployed and not being able to feed their families. So, I just think it's important that we agree on the mission. And then I think all of these are really good tools. Like, I don't think it needs to be an either or situation. Am I wrong? Am I missing something in this?
I want to answer the other question first, but I do want to take a crack at that. I think one of the things that in Real Progress in Action, that's our 501c4, we want to be able to support candidates that obviously understand MMT, because we don't want any more, Austerians running for office. We want to get them out of there. Okay. I call them murderers by proxy. So with that said, I really believe, because of the climate situation that we have right now, I think that we have to attack it multiple angles. I think we really need mutual aid. I think we really need organizing without parties included. F the parties. I'm more concerned about people fighting back. And Sunrise Movement, it's a great organization, and they support a lot of the things that I'm pushing for. So I'm absolutely in alignment there. But I believe that a lot of this is something that we have to do outside of the electoral system. That said, I fully agree. And the reason why I let Tom go is because I did some research and I loved what his organization's doing. So I wanted to give him a chance to put that out there. But as far as what you said, the only concern I have here is understanding the macroeconomic effects of an automatic stabilizer, a counter-cyclical automatic stabilizer is very different than giving cash permanent, just period, across the board. And so these things have very different effects on the economy. And it's not what they do. It's not wanting to give people money. It's understanding that there is a near and present danger of the right-wing Koch brother version of the UBI that wants very much so to destroy everything that happened under FDR's watch. And we want to make sure that that does not happen. So in my opinion, it's a Trojan horse. I don't think Tom means it as a Trojan. I want to be perfectly clear. I think there's very, very good people that want very, very different things than I do, that I agree with them in spirit. But I believe that there are very, very bad people that want the same thing for very different reasons. And I want to make sure that the bad people do not get a chance to destroy society and turn this into even a more dog-eat-dog dystopian world than it is today. And that's my fear. So that's my caution.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.